If you're new to fasting, or maybe you've tried it before but you're struggling to see results, honestly, I'm not surprised. There is so much mixed information trying to sell you something. Fasting Tube is independent and focusing on real information. Let's get started with today's video.
The question, for bodybuilding, should you eat 6 to 8 times a day or do intermittent fasting? There are people who eat 6 to 8 times a day, spread over the whole day, and there are people who do intermittent fasting. What is best? I decided to break everything down for you. Let's begin. The liver transforms amino acids into readily usable molecules in a system called deamination. Deamination converts amino acids to nitrogen and then turns nitrogen into ammonia, which is relocated via the liver and excreted in urine. The three energy sources for animals: amino acids, sugars, fatty acids. Charged molecules are amino acids, sugars. Charged particles draw a significant amount of water into cells. Fun fact: soap is derived from fatty acids. If you've seen the movie Fight Club, you know the dumpster scene. The body doesn't want fatty soap-like acids floating around, obviously, so the solution is to store them as triglycerides. In this triglyceride form, the fat draws tiny amounts of water, and this allows the body to store an enormous amount of fat in each cell. Just like with free-floating fatty acids, we can transform sugars into glycogen the same way. Glucose is a precursor of glycogen and draws less water compared to glucose molecules. The body compresses these molecules and stores them, like a computer zipping a file. The body can only hold so many charged molecules until it ruptures. Amino acids are charged particles. Charged particles draw a lot more water into a cell compared to sugars and fat. To neutralize the charge, we can form a polymer of amino acids. The only way the body can store extra amino acids is in the shape of protein molecules. Every life form we know of has thousands of various proteins in them. However, with protein molecules there isn't a single form it's stored in, and there is a good reason for that. Carbohydrates and fats are chemically somewhat dormant, proteins aren't. All protein have a job. Therefore it's hard to clarify what excess protein means. Many amino acids are easy to make, and most don't cost much to do so the body would rather use these than store them. If excess proteins are floating around, the body will put them to good use, and that's not always for building muscles. Amino acid availability mostly controls protein synthesis. In a well-nourished state, the body will absorb and produce more proteins at a higher rate than usual. Combined with being in a fasted state when taking the protein in, most cells in the body will upregulate phagocytosis. They will digest large portions of the proteins into the cell and releases amino acids for new protein synthesis. Okay, mid-game summary. Unlike carbohydrates and fatty acids, the body doesn't store amino acids in the same manner. Amino acids not only build muscle but have many more functions as well. Protein will be used for other resources if not used for the muscles. When in a fasted state, we absorb more protein in each setting. I'll break this down like our body breaks down protein. When we digest protein, the stomach uses enzymes and acids to break it down into amino acids. The protease enzymes break down proteins into peptides, while peptidase enzymes break down tinier forms of proteins into amino acids. These macronutrients relocate to the bloodstream and then delivered to various parts of the body. The small intestine only has so many transporter cells, which limits the amount of amino acids that can be infused into the blood every hour. Proper macro timing comes into play now, as we can get even more out of our protein absorption. Protein absorption: how quickly our small intestine can absorb amino acids into our blood. Rough estimates: whey protein takes 8 to 10 grams per hour to digest. Casein protein takes 5 to 6 grams per hour to digest. Soy protein takes 3 to 4 grams per hour to digest. Egg protein takes 2 to 4 grams per hour to digest. These can always change based on the quality and pureness of the protein absorbed. Certain proteins digest very slowly, and others process relatively fast. Analogy: think of a muscle like a sponge. A good sponge is the one that can be thoroughly dried without becoming hard. Similar to pouring water on a sponge and it becoming saturated to the point that it can no longer absorb any water, the muscles are the same way with absorbing nutrients until fully saturated. Ways to dry out a sponge: muscles are fasting, workouts, low carbohydrates. Because of the sponge-like nature of muscles, if all the protein comes in at the same time, or in a few big meals, this will lead to a big spillover. This spillover in layman's terms means, broken down amino acids wanted for muscle growth become utilized for other processes unrelated to muscle building. In an intense workout, an individual can lose up to 1 pound of muscle. If serious about gaining muscle, the goal should be to hit the sponge when it's dry, so to speak. Pour just enough nutrients on the muscles to have them fully saturated, then let them dry, and rinse and repeat. Given the speed at which whey protein absorbs, 8 to 10 grams per hour, it's safe to assume that one could absorb up to 15 grams per hour when in a fasted state, meaning, protein intake around 50 grams every 3 hours after breaking fast will maximize protein synthesis by directing the most protein per hour towards muscle growth. 3 hours after taking 50 grams of protein, the person will return to the fasted state, therefore getting the heightened absorption rate every time. Just this little nuance will add more muscle mass from workouts over the course of the year. Eating 8 meals a day forces the body to absorb all of those nutrients, tons of protein. This creates the backlog, which means that rotting food will be sitting in the intestines collecting parasites. A steak dinner can take 40 to 70 plus hours to fully digest, based off someone who eats on an empty stomach. Eating a steak while backlogged, this meat can sit inside the stomach rotting for well over 80 plus hours. Every living being has parasites and bacteria living inside, some worse than others. One can live an entire life with tapeworms and not realize it. The backlog is obviously not okay for a lot of reasons, but these parasites live off the food you eat in your flesh. The more rotting food in the stomach, the bigger the parasites grow and the more they multiply. The more parasites you have, the more these creatures will steal your nourishment and cause infections, leading to health issues and slower muscle gains, and in some cases can lead to muscle loss. Being backlogged with rotting food is the perfect breeding grounds for parasites and bacteria. There is a smart way to bodybuild, and a dumb brute force way to bodybuild. Yes, one can build muscle eating 8 meals a day, but at what cost to personal health? The body doesn't need 300 grams of protein a day to build muscle. This is overkill and bad for people's health. With intermittent fasting, people don't need to eat as much protein because of one magical hormone, human growth hormone. Read this link to understand its importance. It's well known that intermittent fasting promotes natural human growth hormone levels to over 1000% compared to non-fasted individuals. To sum up HGH in a simple statement, human growth hormone burns fat while preserving, repairing and building lean muscle mass. Human growth hormone takes the place of protein and builds the muscles with the reserved amino acids. This is why you don't need as much protein with intermittent fasting correctly compared to 8 meals a day. To wrap this rather lengthy answer up, getting in 50 grams of whey protein every 3 hours after breaking fast is the best theoretical way to build muscle. Use this as a guide, and when you eat something like eggs or a steak, you can calculate how long it will wait to absorb that protein, and that will give you a rough estimate on the macros you're intaking, this based off an 8-hour eating window. Always gauge macro intake by body weight. Don't just take 50 grams every 3 hours after breaking fast for someone who's 180 pounds. I would say there is no reason to get more than 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass each day, with 1 day of the week going lower to help utilize any backed up nutrients. While we do store amino acids, the majority of the spillover we will not go to muscles, it will go to other parts of the body. Eating 8 meals a day high protein certainly assures the muscles get enough protein, but comes in a very inefficient manner. Minimize to maximize. Utilize the body's hormones, use fast absorbing forms of protein, and hit the muscles with nutrition at times it's most responsive. This creates a very productive environment for muscle growth. Throwing mass amounts of protein at the situation isn't going to work forever. Health problems will arise, especially in the intestine and colon areas, and there is no need to butcher one's health to get the right amount of protein. I didn't even touch on the wasted energy that comes with digesting 8 meals a day. Read that here. For more answers, or a full guideline on fasting, check out the links in the description below.